Kristi Baxter. He is Michael Cameron, your hosts for the Win-Win at Work radio show. We'll discover what makes a workplace great by interviewing CEOs and other executives who've created a dynamic workplace. We'll also hear from top thought leaders in the fields of leadership, employee engagement, hiring and retention, career coaching, personal branding, and all things related. What works and what resonates with employees and what doesn't. We may not have all the answers, but Win-Win at Work has one very simple goal: help you and your employer win in the workplace and in the marketplace. Welcome to Win-Win at Work, the radio show.
Hello, I'm Kristi Baxter, along with my co-host Michael Cameron. Welcome to the Win-Win at Work radio show. We're thrilled you're spending your time with us today. We have a wonderful guest today, and we're really excited to bring her on. We have Laura Guzman. Laura is the C.O.O. of Microdesk. Laura, welcome to the show.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
And thank you for getting up so early so you can be on air with us. You're on the West Coast, I assume?
I am. I'm in San Francisco, and starting the day early, but typically do, so wasn't too terrible.
Perfect. So, tell us a little bit about yourself and your professional journey. I just kind of love to understand everybody's story because everybody has one. So kind of how'd you end up at Microdesk?
Yeah, well, I think my path actually started back on the East Coast in upstate New York. I grew up on a small family farming business, actually. And so my background is marketing and communications. Over the course of my career, I explored a lot of different areas, but urban planning and the way that we develop and build our cities and towns and neighborhoods really intrigued me. And so after spending a stint in Washington, D.C. partway through my career, working with an architecture and planning firm, I came across sort of the technology aspects of it and beginning to understand how can we leverage technology to really design and build our buildings and infrastructure more sustainably and smarter and more efficiently. And so I came across an organization called Microdesk that's really innovating the way that we look at technology and helps organizations like architecture, engineering, construction firms, and really owners of these facilities, healthcare, government, universities, and helping them think about how can we use technology to do things better. And so it's an intriguing value proposition, and joined them in a market capacity for a little over 5 years, and then switched over to the operations side. And really right now I'm focused on how can Microdesk, one, find the best talent, because we're in an interesting space, find the best talent to do the job and help our clients do the work, stay ahead of the technology, how do we deliver a great customer experience, and how do we continue to evolve in a smart way as our own organization. So it's been a fun transition, and we're really growing quickly. So watching that over the last 7.5 years, we're a 12-office organization, now global. We opened an office in the UK last year and 11 other locations across the nation, and it's been an exciting ride.
Laura, when Kristi and I did our due diligence and did our research on your company and you, I Googled your name, and your profile came up second. And the other Laura Guzman out there is a contestant for Miss Universe out of Canada. So I know, because you have a very diversified background, so is that you also? Are you the contestant for Miss Universe?
I'm afraid I can't claim that for no.
Okay, great.
So, Laura, just dive in a little bit more about, Microdesk and kind of, let's start with kind of bigger picture, like what the business does. What are your products and services? I understand you kind of help the architecture, engineering, and construction business. But for people who may not be familiar with really the complexities of it, I mean, my sister's an architect who builds university science buildings, so I probably understand better than maybe the average person, but it's an incredibly complex process to bring a building from a two-dimensional drawing to three-dimensional life, and then kind of the maintenance of that thereafter. Kind of where does Microdesk fit into that?
Yeah, I like to think of us at the center of the entire project delivery process. really we're engaged from the time that you plan, design, construct, and then organizations are operating and maintaining those facilities. And we really engage with any and all of those organizations at every stage of that process. So we have a holistic view of how these complex projects come together. And you're right, it's very complicated. I work with an organization called the Urban Land Institute who focuses a lot on educating the community and even public officials about the complex process involved in understanding how can we imagine a project, and that's the planning and design piece of it. How do all the policies that we make impact the way that project can come together in reality? Understanding neighbors and communities' perspectives is extremely important and complex. And then, how the building comes together itself. And this is really, technology comes in at all those stages. But that whole design and construction process, now a lot of people think about architecture and design and construction happening in 2D design and papers and blueprints. And in a lot of places, that does still happen, but we're moving into a world where all this can be done using technology. And so I guess one of the ways that I find a lot of people can relate is, everyone's seen Avatar or some of these fantastic movies that are, digital experiences. That most of what you're seeing on the screen is not real. It was produced on a computer by amazing graphical designers using really, really complex tools. It's actually interesting those same tools are what we're using to design buildings. And just to give you a flavor of complexity, we've got every single, think about modeling every single doorknob and duct in a facility. That's a lot of data. That's a lot of information. That's, if you've missed one thing, how much that could impact the rest of the facility. So we're looking at how do we leverage technology to do that better. We're looking at new tools now that are, basically helping us come up with the best case solution, computational design and analysis, simulating what would happen if that building had to experience an earthquake or a hurricane. So the technology helps us facilitate understanding how to build that building better, what materials to use, what sequence needs to happen in order to make it come up from the ground. So everyone from the beginning to the end has the opportunity to use that technology. And Microdesk's role is helping to connect the dots between all those organizations involved and helping them be more efficient. The one other thing that's really inherent to the industry is we've often operated in silos. Architects do their piece, they pass it on to engineers, it goes back and forth for a time, and then it goes on to the construction. And then they get their piece done, it moves on to the owners. The owners may not receive that data that had been used throughout the process. We're trying to connect those dots. Everyone should be working together, and that'll make the whole entire process much more efficient.
Laura, it's interesting. You folks are growing very, very quickly. You're hiring a lot of professionals right now. And one of the things that I picked up from kind of reading between the lines and just, continuing to research your background and your website is, because of your marketing background, you're a storyteller. You value engagement, employee engagement and so on and so forth. And you folks are hiring some of the most difficult professionals to find in that you're looking for engineers and architects. So you're looking for people with a technical mindset, but also have that consultant background or have that ability to connect with people in so many ways. So share with us kind of your employer brand and why should a talented architect or engineer consider working at Microdesk?
Yeah, it's a really special kind of person that we're looking for to join our team. And so one of the things we really pride ourselves on, you're right, is the way that we position ourselves. The reason that we bring value to the community is because we believe we deliver the vision, the tools, and the talent. And the vision and the tools don't come without having the right people. So the persona of the kind of people that we bring in is we want people who are from the industry, and so they know the industry, and they really bring experienced perspective to every engagement. And it's not every architect and engineer that can be a good teacher, can be a good consultant. So it's a really interesting persona. So the way that we come to that is, two, there's really savvy people, smart people who are in those roles today who can learn. And so we're really, we're a training organization, and we teach our clients, we teach our people too. And so one thing we really embrace is to helping people to grow into those roles. And that's a constant work in progress, but I think that that's dedication to, drinking your own Kool-Aid, so to speak. The other is, I think we're attracted to a certain kind of person. So we've developed a culture that brings together people who, one, have a real love of technology, just almost a geeky sense of how do I use tools, and really wanting to dig into the technology aspect of the industry. That's not for everyone. A lot of architects go into it for the design and the art of it, and that's a path and one that's necessary. And then there's the others who really want to look at the technology and what's coming out there, and how can we use that to innovate the way that we design. Those are the people we're looking for. We're looking for people with personality and a passion, and something that's a little bit different. It's a very non-traditional career path in an industry where there's a very defined path. And so it's an interesting value proposition to join an organization where, maybe you get off the hamster wheel. Maybe you don't want to be on the principal path and work long hours overnight on projects and really have no level of contribution to a lot of different projects over time. So it's something where people are interested in contributing to something more, traveling, participating in a lot of different projects with a lot of different really big name organizations. So it's unique. So it's people who are looking for a little something different, and coming from Bay Area and Silicon Valley area, that's looking for that little startup-y opportunity to take your career in a different direction is very compelling here, and it certainly is in other locations too. So it's a challenge to find the right people, but we think that the people who come to us are the best and the brightest in the kind of thing that we do, and they're really special.
So can you put some words around your culture? So for our listeners out there who might be interested, and you've piqued their interest by the growth opportunity and a different career trajectory, tell us a little bit about, if I'm going to join Microdesk, really what is the culture? Like, use some descriptive words because you're a storyteller.
Yeah, well, one word would be innovative. I think we're always pushing the envelope. We really, as a culture, believe that no challenge is too big. Something I always tell all my new hires is, we are often brought incredibly complex problems, and the pervasive attitude is, yeah, we can do that. Again, that sort of love for technology is sort of felt throughout the company. We love to try new things. We love to look at things like virtual reality and wonder, I wonder how I could use that. So that sense of curiosity, and we really embrace a go-gettedness sort of attitude. And by that I mean, there's really not a ton of structure, and we do that on purpose. Everyone has an opportunity to bring thoughts, ideas, vision to the table, and pretty much everyone in this organization, the longevity of most people here is quite incredible. The entire leadership team, I have the lowest tenure of about 8 years, and that's pretty true throughout the organization. That people come and they stay, sometimes they go work other places and come back again, but they have an opportunity to really grow within the organization. And we all started out here doing something very different than we're doing today, and it's because we saw opportunity to make Microdesk and what we do better. And, if you're a go-getter and see something, we'll make it happen, and we'll let that happen. So,
Laura, let's take a moment and just talk about kind of your business model. I think my thought was, especially going back a few years back when gas was becoming very expensive, that I thought there was going to be more and more people kind of moving to cosmopolitan areas, if you will. And it seems, and maybe you, because I got a hunch you guys have a good sense of this, because at the end of the day, a lot of your business is in major cities. That's where the majority of your work is, right?
Yeah, that's correct. And there's definitely a movement towards urbanization. We're seeing that, and I think cranes and skylines are pretty big evidence of that. That said, we do work all over the place. So any big infrastructure projects, railways, things like that. So those don't always occur in downtown areas. But yeah, a lot of the work is in cities, of course. So
you're still seeing a trend, even though gas is cheap, where more and more people are attracted. They want to be around a city or live in the city. Is that continue to be a trend?
Yeah, and I think a lot of it's driven by sort of a shift in what people are looking for in a life experience, and that the concept of live, work, play is really becoming embraced. I think there are a lot of you think of cities and you think of New York and you think of Boston and you think of San Francisco, but there are a lot of up-and-coming cities that are developing in this way too. So, really interestingly, I visited Nashville earlier this year, and how quickly they are growing. It's just a blinding rate of growth and development there, and it's so we're seeing sort of a secondary wave in smaller up-and-coming cities where, people don't necessarily need to be in the most urban downtowns, but they're still looking for the benefits of having access to public transportation, plus a great place to live, plus a great place to work, a great place to raise a family. And so it's really interesting how that sort of changes the context of a local place. I think despite gas prices, that's going to continue. I think it's a cultural thing. I think it's a generational thing. Two other shifts we see, of course, are, what's happening with millennials and what they're looking for, and then the boomers. And interestingly enough, both are sort of looking for the same thing, that live, work, play. And so, there's an interesting challenge in the UK, and I don't know if we'll see it here, but and I'm not sure I would mind terribly much, and to some extent, but they've run out of cranes. That's how much building is happening. So that's a pretty incredible problem they have, and it just gives you a small sense of the scale of the issue, not just here in the U.S., but worldwide. It's exciting times for us to be a part of that kind of growth.
So are you saying, I'm curious about the running out of cranes in the UK, because anybody who hasn't been to London for a while and then goes, it's astounding the amount of growth in such an established city. Are you seeing that over there in Europe, kind of out of London and in some of the smaller cities as well, and kind of a similar phenomenon that's going on here?
So to tell you the truth, we aren't doing a lot of work outside of London and that general area at this point. So I couldn't comment too much on it, but it is my understanding that it's a general trend. But yeah, seeing very similar growth patterns in even smaller cities, same as here.
Yeah, I do think it's interesting because Michael and I love to chit-chat about millennials and kind of all the generational differences. And, one of the things that millennials definitely want, probably more so than Gen Xers at the same time, they want access to everything without ownership. And in order to get access, you definitely need volume, and where you get volume is in more urban centers.
Yeah. And, in some sense, so they want access without ownership, but they in some sense don't need as much either, right? So it's you put that in with how much space do I really need? How much stuff do I really need? And an urban center sort of encourages that kind of living too, right? I don't need a large house. I will go to the co-working space down the street, and then I'll hang out at the cafe, and I'll go back to my one-bedroom apartment. So, yeah, the needs, watching the needs and how that impacts our growth and development is really, really interesting. Although I think, ultimately at the end of the day, everybody wants at the core the same thing, to live in a great place, to know that it's safe, to know that we've got, you've got great amenities and a great community. And so what we really think a lot about is, are we building great places? Are we building community? And what are the elements to create that? And to really, to build it well and sustainably, because, we don't have unlimited resources. So it's a really fun process to think that through. What's the kind of place we want to live, and how do you make it great? And starting with we're not starting a blank space or slate in every location, of course. So how do your cities evolve to accommodate that?
It's interesting, Laura. Kristi and I are very fortunate because every week we get to talk to CEOs, COOs, or C-suite executives, and innovative HR leaders, as well as workplace culture thought leaders. And the millennials have definitely influenced the workplace culture dramatically in what I consider to be a lot of real positive ways. I mean, everyone talks about the ping pong tables and pizza on Friday, and you bring your dog in on Thursday, and you wear your pajamas on Tuesday, whatever it is. But that's fine. But I think millennials are really driven by a transparent organization where the CEO is accessible, the COO is accessible. They want to work for an organization where they really feel they can add value to the organization in so many ways. And that employees really want to be treated like your customers are treated. And so it's exciting what's happening out there, I think, in the workplace. And you mentioned that you have a high retention rate for your employees. So you folks are definitely doing the necessary things to keep people challenged and to keep them happy. And there's a lot to be said for that, Laura. That's all good.
Well, we like to think so, too. I mean, there's definitely no shortage of challenge and no shortage of opportunity. And I think whether you're a millennial or within any generation, a place where you feel like you're working with great people, you have opportunity to contribute to the growth, and you're really participating in something bigger, that's compelling to everyone. Yeah, I think there is a sort of a millennial stereotype that the job hop attention span is short, and I think that possibly one of the best value props for a millennial in our organization is you could easily have job ADD and never have to leave Microdesk because of all the different sorts of projects and work that you get a chance to work on. But it's interesting. I recently gave a discussion and I did some research on sort of that generational, gap, and whether there are things that you need to do to attract millennials versus other generations, like the pool tables and things like that. And I just don't think it's true. I think at the end of the day, everybody's looking for exactly the same thing. And research proves it. They want a company that they can be proud of. They want a sense of community with their colleagues. And they want great leaders. They want honest leaders that they trust and want to work with. And I think that, I'm fortunate to work with an organization that brings all those things to the table.
It's interesting you say that because Michael and I sometimes disagree, because my kind of general sentiment is that the millennials really aren't any different than any other generation at that time. If you go back and look at literature from the 80s, the Gen Xers were this, irreverent, lazy, kind of the same things we say about the millennials today. I think part of the difference is that they're enabled by technology in a way that no other generation has before them. So it gives them some advantages that, boomers and Xers didn't have. But I agree. I think that, for the most part, everybody is really kind of looking for the same thing, no matter how old you are. The millennials are just kind of fortunate that the technology exists in many ways to provide that experience.
Yeah, I think the key to accommodate all those things, sure, there are absolutely going to be differences, and, every individual wants, something a little bit different as well. Accommodating with flexibility. So you're technology enabled, you let millennials leverage that technology, it enhances the entire organization. providing opportunities for better collaboration. So I think there's a mentality about training up and training down. And what are the values and skills that we can take from millennials and help the other generations, and vice versa? What's that knowledge that's so core and central to every organization because of longevity of experience, history, that should be trained down? And that's actually a type of consulting engagement that we typically do within organizations. So, and ultimately, like I said, flexibility. If you create a workplace where you have an environment that generally accommodates everybody, if you want to work remote, great. If you want to be in an office, great. If you can establish a base foundation to allow employees to have the experience that they want, then they will be happy and they will be successful. So it's an interesting debate, to be sure.
Yeah, Laura, you described reverse mentoring to some degree. And I know when I first got involved with Twitter at hashtag win-win at work, I had to connect with a millennial to show me how to do it. So you're right. I mean, mentoring can be done by all generations, no doubt about it. Another part of the workplace culture that is really jumping out at us in so many of our interviews, Laura, is purpose. And I'll be honest, I'm a baby boomer, and I was driven by making money when I got out of college, good, bad, or indifferent. And I think so many of the millennials are really driven by purpose as well as making a fair salary. So, what are your thoughts on developing a purpose-driven workplace culture?
Yeah, I think it's important. I mean, at the end of the day, of course, success in the form of earning money and growing as a company is always a great goal, and that's inherent to us. I mean, we are competitive by nature, and we want to grow aggressively year over year, and setting out that challenge is really motivating. But the other more altruistic, purpose-driven sorts of motivations are incredibly important too. And I like to say to all my new hires, you want to have a reason to wake up in the morning and go to work. And my reason here is knowing that we are impacting some of the most impressive projects going on throughout the world today. We're behind the scenes of some of the most amazing work, the tallest tower in the world. We're working with the structural engineer on that project. The organizations that are reshaping the Hudson Yards area of Manhattan, New York City, and just completely reshaping that skyline. We're behind the scenes of that team. We work with port authorities and helping them to fix all of our airports. I mean, that's a purpose and a reason to get up in the morning. But I can sum that up in a couple words. We're building a better world.
Well, that's a
great way to get.
That's a great way to end the show. That's good stuff. Well, listen, we want to thank you again for hanging out with us here at the Win-Win Network radio show. Microdesk seems like a really cool company. So for all you talented engineers and architects who may have some nice emotional intelligence skills to go along with those technical skills, check out Microdesk. What's your URL, Laura?
Yeah, we're at www.microdesk.com. And, we're looking for great talent, salespeople, and other roles, too. So come check us out.
Outstanding. Well, thanks very much, Laura. We'll be in touch, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks for getting up so early.
Thank you. You, too. Have a great day.
All right, bye. All right, this is Michael Cameron from the Win-Win at Work radio show on WSCA 106.1 FM on every Friday morning, 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Signing off.
I'm Kristi Baxter. Have a great day.